Sarah was fired for feeding her baby at work. Her cruel boss said she was lazy and wasting company time. But he didn't know the truth. What Sarah was doing was protected by law. When he finally discovered his mistake, it was almost too late to fix it. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Sarah Chin sat at her desk, typing quickly on her computer. She glanced at the clock on her screen, 11:47 a.m. Her heart started beating faster. In 13 minutes she would need to pump milk for her 3-month-old baby Lucy. Sarah worked as an accountant at Morrison & Associates, a big law firm in the city. She had been working there for 5 years, but everything changed 3 months ago when she had her baby. Her husband had left her when she was 7 months pregnant, saying he wasn't ready to be a father. Now Sarah was a single mother trying to balance work and taking care of her baby. Lucy stayed with Sarah's neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, during the day. But Sarah still needed to pump breast milk every 3 hours to feed her baby and to keep her milk supply up. The problem was her boss, Mr. Richard Morrison. He was the owner of the law firm and a very strict man. He didn't like when employees took breaks, even for lunch. He believed that work should always come first. Sarah had asked him for a private place to pump milk, but he had refused. "We don't have space for that kind of thing," he had said coldly. "If you can't focus on work, maybe you should stay home with your baby." So Sarah had been using the small supply closet on the 3rd floor. It wasn't comfortable, but it was private. She would sneak away from her desk, pump milk quickly, and return to work. She thought no one had noticed. But she was wrong. At exactly 12 p.m., Sarah quietly left her desk and walked to the supply closet. She locked the door and set up her breast pump. This was always the most stressful part of her day. She worried that someone would need something from the closet, or that her boss would notice she was gone. As she pumped milk, Sarah thought about Lucy. She missed her baby so much during the day. Sometimes she felt guilty for leaving Lucy with a babysitter, but she needed this job. As a single mother, she couldn't afford to lose her income. Sarah finished pumping and carefully stored the milk in a small cooler bag. She unlocked the door and stepped out of the closet. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Sarah's blood turned cold. Mr. Morrison was standing right in front of her, his arms crossed and his face angry. "Mr. Morrison, I was just—" "You were just stealing company time," he said loudly. Several other employees stopped working to listen. "I've been watching you, Sarah. Every day at the same time, you disappear for 20 minutes. I finally decided to follow you." Sarah's face turned red with embarrassment. She clutched her pump bag tightly. "Sir, I can explain. I was pumping milk for my baby. I need to do it every 3 hours or—" "I don't want to hear your excuses," Mr. Morrison interrupted. "You're being paid to work, not to deal with your personal problems. If you can't commit to this job 100%, then you don't belong here." Other employees were staring now. Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes. "Please, Mr. Morrison. I only take 20 minutes and I make up the time by staying late. I really need this job." "You should have thought about that before you decided to have a baby," Mr. Morrison said cruelly. "This is a professional workplace, not a daycare center." Sarah couldn't believe what she was hearing. "But sir, pumping breast milk is a medical necessity. I have the right to—" "You have the right to find another job," Mr. Morrison cut her off. "You're fired, effective immediately. Clean out your desk and leave." The entire office was silent. Everyone was staring at Sarah, who was now crying openly. She had never felt so humiliated in her life. "But Mr. Morrison," she said through her tears, "I've been a good employee for 5 years. My work has always been excellent. Please don't do this." "Your work was excellent before you had a baby," he replied. "Now you're distracted and unreliable. We need someone who can focus on the job." Sarah looked around the office at her co-workers. Some of them looked sympathetic, but no one said anything. They were all afraid of losing their own jobs. With shaking hands, Sarah walked back to her desk and began packing her things. She put her family photo, her coffee mug, and her few personal items into a cardboard box. Tears kept falling on her papers as she worked. "I'm sorry, Sarah," whispered Janet, the woman who worked at the desk next to hers. "This isn't fair." "Thank you," Sarah whispered back. She finished packing and walked toward the elevator, carrying her box and her pump bag. As the elevator doors closed, Sarah broke down completely. How was she going to pay her rent? How would she buy food for herself and Lucy? How would she explain to Mrs. Patterson that she couldn't pay for babysitting anymore? When Sarah got home, Lucy was crying. Mrs. Patterson looked worried. "She's been fussy all day," Mrs. Patterson said. "I think she's hungry, but I ran out of the milk you left this morning." Sarah's heart broke. Because she had been fired before her lunch break, she hadn't been able to pump milk for Lucy's afternoon feeding. "I'll feed her now," Sarah said, taking Lucy in her arms. As her baby nursed, Sarah told Mrs. Patterson what had happened. "That's terrible," Mrs. Patterson said angrily. "That man has no heart. Don't worry about paying me for babysitting. You focus on finding a new job." But finding a new job wasn't easy. Sarah applied to dozens of companies, but the job market was tough. Weeks passed and her savings were running out. She had to ask her parents for money to pay rent, which made her feel like a failure. Meanwhile, back at Morrison & Associates, things were not going well. Sarah had been handling the accounts for some of the firm's biggest clients. Without her, the other accountants were struggling to keep up with the work. The first sign of trouble came 2 weeks after Sarah was fired. Mrs. Elizabeth Hartwell, the wife of a very rich businessman, came to the office. She was one of the firm's most important clients. "I need to speak with Sarah Chin," Mrs. Hartwell told the receptionist. "She's been handling my family's accounts for 3 years." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Hartwell," the receptionist said nervously. "Sarah no longer works here. But I can connect you with another accountant." Mrs. Hartwell frowned. "What do you mean she no longer works here? Sarah is excellent at her job. Where did she go?" The receptionist didn't know what to say. She called Mr. Morrison to handle the situation. "Mrs. Hartwell," Mr. Morrison said with his fake business smile, "Sarah left to pursue other opportunities. But don't worry, we have other qualified accountants who can help you." "I don't want another accountant," Mrs. Hartwell said firmly. "I want Sarah. She understands my accounts better than anyone. I'm going to take my business elsewhere." Mrs. Hartwell left the office and Mr. Morrison felt worried for the first time. The Hartwell account was worth over $200,000 per year to his firm. But that was just the beginning. Over the next month, 3 more major clients asked for Sarah and decided to leave when they found out she was gone. Mr. Morrison was losing money fast. One day, Janet from accounting came to Mr. Morrison's office. She looked nervous but determined. "Sir, I need to tell you something about Sarah Chin," she said. "What about her?" Mr. Morrison asked impatiently. "The day you fired her, you said she was being lazy and taking unauthorized breaks. But that's not true. Sarah was pumping breast milk for her baby. She's a single mother and she needs to pump milk every few hours to feed her child." Mr. Morrison waved his hand dismissively. "I don't care what she was doing. Company time is company time." "But sir," Janet continued bravely, "what Sarah was doing is protected by law. Employers have to provide time and space for nursing mothers to pump milk. By firing her for that reason, you broke federal law." Mr. Morrison's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "The Pregnancy Discrimination Act and the Fair Labor Standards Act require employers to support nursing mothers. Sarah could sue the company for wrongful termination." Mr. Morrison felt sick. He hadn't known about these laws. He had just been angry that Sarah was taking breaks. "Also," Janet added, "Sarah was our best accountant. She handled all the difficult clients and she never made mistakes. Since she left, we've been struggling with her workload and we're losing clients because of it." After Janet left, Mr. Morrison sat alone in his office, thinking. He realized he had made a terrible mistake. He had fired his best employee for doing something that was perfectly legal and necessary. That evening, Mr. Morrison decided to find out more about Sarah's situation. He looked up her address and drove to her apartment building. He wanted to see for himself what kind of person Sarah really was. When he arrived at Sarah's building, he saw her in the parking lot, loading groceries into an old car. But these weren't expensive groceries, they were basic items from the discount store. Sarah looked thin and tired. Mr. Morrison watched as Sarah struggled to carry the grocery bags and a baby carrier up the stairs to her apartment. She made several trips because she couldn't carry everything at once. Through the window, Mr. Morrison could see into Sarah's small apartment. It was clean but very simple. There was barely any furniture, and he could see boxes of baby formula on the counter, which meant Sarah probably couldn't afford to feed her baby properly. Mr. Morrison felt ashamed. He had thought Sarah was being lazy and irresponsible, but now he could see she was just a struggling single mother trying to do her best. The next morning, Mr. Morrison called his lawyer. "I need to know about laws regarding nursing mothers in the workplace," he said. His lawyer explained that Mr. Morrison had indeed broken federal law by firing Sarah for pumping breast milk. "She could sue you for a lot of money," the lawyer warned. "Wrongful termination cases like this often result in large settlements." Mr. Morrison realized he needed to fix the situation before it got worse. He also realized that he genuinely missed having Sarah as an employee. She had been reliable, skilled, and professional. His business was suffering without her. He picked up the phone and called Sarah. Sarah was at home with Lucy when her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number, but she answered anyway, hoping it might be about a job. "Hello, Sarah. This is Richard Morrison." Sarah's heart started beating fast. "Mr. Morrison? Why are you calling me? I need to talk to you. Can we meet somewhere?" I don't think that's a good idea," Sarah said. She was still hurt and angry about being fired. "Please, Sarah. It's important. I realize I made a mistake." Sarah was curious despite herself. "What kind of mistake?" "I'll explain when I see you. Can you meet me at the coffee shop on 5th Street in an hour?" Sarah didn't want to go, but she needed closure. "Okay. But I can only stay for a few minutes." An hour later, Sarah sat across from Mr. Morrison in the coffee shop. She was holding Lucy, who was sleeping in her arms. "Sarah," Mr. Morrison began, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong to fire you." Sarah stared at him in surprise. "You were wrong?" "Yes. I didn't understand what you were doing or why you needed to do it. I thought you were just being irresponsible, but I've learned that pumping breast milk is something you have to do. It's not a choice." Sarah nodded. "That's right. If I don't pump regularly, I can't feed Lucy, and my milk supply will dry up." "I also didn't realize that what I did was illegal," Mr. Morrison continued. "My lawyer told me that I broke federal law by firing you. Employers are required to support nursing mothers." "I know," Sarah said quietly. "I looked it up after you fired me. I thought about suing you." "Why didn't you?" Sarah looked down at Lucy. "Because I don't have money for a lawyer, and I needed to focus on finding a new job to support my baby." Mr. Morrison felt even worse. Here was a woman who had every right to sue him, but she was too worried about her baby's welfare to fight back. "Sarah, I want to offer you your job back," he said. "With a raise. And I'll set up a proper room for nursing mothers in the office." Sarah was shocked. "You want me to come back?" "Yes. The company has been struggling without you. You were our best accountant, and our clients miss you. Several of them have left because they specifically wanted to work with you." Sarah thought about the offer. She desperately needed the job, but she was worried about trusting Mr. Morrison again. "If I come back," she said slowly, "I need certain guarantees." "What kind of guarantees?" "I need the nursing room you mentioned with a comfortable chair and a refrigerator for storing milk. I need flexible break times for pumping. And I need a written promise that I won't be discriminated against for being a nursing mother." "Done," Mr. Morrison said immediately. "All of it. I'll put everything in writing." Sarah looked at her sleeping baby and thought about their financial situation. She really needed this job. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll come back. But if you ever treat me unfairly again because I'm a mother, I will sue you." "I understand," Mr. Morrison said. "And Sarah? I'm truly sorry for what I put you through. I was ignorant and cruel, and you didn't deserve that." The next week, Sarah returned to work. True to his word, Mr. Morrison had converted a small office into a comfortable nursing room. It had a chair, a small refrigerator, and a lock on the door for privacy. Sarah's coworkers welcomed her back warmly. They had missed her skills and her friendly personality. "I'm so glad you're back," Janet whispered. "The office hasn't been the same without you." Over the following months, Mr. Morrison proved that he had truly changed. He became more understanding of his employees' personal needs. He allowed flexible schedules for parents and created a more supportive work environment. Sarah thrived in her job. With the stress of financial worry removed, she was able to be an even better employee. Her clients were happy to work with her again, and the company's profits returned to normal. One day, 6 months after Sarah returned to work, Mr. Morrison stopped by her desk. "Sarah, I want you to know that you've taught me an important lesson," he said. "I used to think that being a good boss meant being tough and demanding. But I've learned that being supportive and understanding actually makes employees work better." "Thank you, Mr. Morrison," Sarah said. "I appreciate that you were willing to admit your mistake and change. I'm promoting you to senior accountant," he said. "With another raise. You've earned it." As Mr. Morrison walked away, Sarah looked at the photo of Lucy on her desk. Her baby was now 9 months old and growing beautifully. Despite all the challenges they had faced, things had worked out. Sarah had learned that sometimes people can change and grow. Mr. Morrison had gone from being a cruel boss to someone who truly cared about his employees' well-being. And Mr. Morrison had learned that supporting his employees' personal needs didn't hurt his business. It actually made it stronger. Sometimes, the best outcomes come from the worst situations. Sarah's firing had been terrible, but it led to positive changes that helped not just her, but all the employees at Morrison and Associates. The nursing room that Mr. Morrison created for Sarah was later used by 3 other new mothers in the company. The flexible policies he implemented made the workplace better for everyone. Sarah never forgot how it felt to be fired for taking care of her baby. Years later, when she started her own accounting firm, she made sure to create the most family-friendly workplace possible. And Mr. Morrison never forgot the lessons Sarah taught him about compassion and understanding. He became known as one of the most supportive employers in the city. Sometimes the most important lessons come from our biggest mistakes. And sometimes admitting you're wrong is the first step toward becoming a better person.